The call came at 2 in the morning. 20 years of marriage, 15 anniversaries spent at the same luxury resort in Aspen, and this time, Michael had vanished from our suite while I was sleeping. When my phone lit up with his name, relief flooded through me until I heard the panic in his voice. "Jennifer, please, I need you to drive to Glenwood Springs right now. My wallet's gone. I'm stranded at the Hampton Inn. Don't ask questions, just come." But something stopped me from jumping into our Range Rover. A surprised notification had popped up on our shared iPad earlier. Call with Ashley ended, 47 minutes. Ashley, his new 26-year-old executive assistant. The assistant he swore was sarcastic, just professional. I wasn't the first person he called for help. And after checking our bank statements while he was gone, I knew exactly why he needed his wallet back so desperately. The Tiffany's charge for $5,000 wasn't for my anniversary gift. I'd received flowers and a spa package. No, that blue box was for someone else. Y'all won't believe what happened next, because I didn't just discover my husband's affair that night. I uncovered his, surprised, entire double life. And the revenge I took makes the Texas Rangers look gentle. The snow was falling gently outside our window at the Little Nell when Michael kissed me goodbye that morning. 45 years old, still handsome enough to make heads turn when we entered a room, my husband had everything. The oil consulting firm he'd built from scratch, our mansion in Houston's River Oaks, and a wife who'd supported every dream he'd ever chased. "I've got a surprise for you tonight." "Happy," he whispered, sliding out of bed. "Just a quick business call with the Saudi investors. Then the whole day is ours." I stretched luxuriously against the Egyptian cotton sheets. 20 years together, and we still made time for romance. Or so I thought. "Don't be long," I murmured, watching him grab his laptop and head to the private balcony of our $1,000 per night suite. This anniversary, hopeful, after raising our twins, who were now freshmen at UCLA, Michael and I were finally embracing our happy empty nester freedom. 3 hours later, he still hadn't returned. My calls went straight to voicemail. The concierge hadn't seen him. His Porsche was still in the hotel garage. "Mrs. Sullivan," the front desk manager said carefully, "your husband settled his spa bill an hour ago. The couple's massage you had scheduled? He changed it to a single treatment and charged another on a different room card." My stomach dropped. Another room card? The manager's expression turned uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, ma'am, there are privacy protocols." I pulled out my Platinum Amex. "I own half his company. Now tell me which room." "He didn't book another room here, Mrs. Sullivan. The second spa charge was for the St. Regis, across town." I maintained my composure as I returned to our suite, the mask of the perfect Texas oil wife firmly in place. 20 years of country club smiles had prepared me for this moment. I sat down with my iPad, the one Michael always forgot we shared an account on, and opened the tracking app he'd insisted we install for safety. His location was turned off, but the damage was already done. The notification center showed a disgusted FaceTime call with Ashley Davis, office. Disgusted, that had ended at 11:42 a.m. Ashley, the assistant he'd hired 4 months ago, the one with the marketing degree from SMU and the Instagram full of sarcastic bikini photos in Cabo. I opened our American Express app. The first charge made my heart stop. Tiffany & Co., Aspen location, $5,372. Timestamp, 10:30 a.m. He hadn't given me anything from Tiffany's. The second charge, St. Regis Aspen, Mountain View Suite, $2,700. Timestamp, 10:45 a.m. The third, liquor store, $320, Dom Perignon. My nervous hands shook as I kept scrolling. Over the past 3 months, there were charges I'd, surprised, never noticed before. Restaurants in Houston I'd never been to. Weekend business trips with hotel charges that didn't match the cities he claimed to be visiting? I wasn't some naive 20-something. I was a 43-year-old woman who'd built a life with a man I thought I knew. As I sat there in our anniversary suite, alone with the evidence of his betrayal glowing on the screen, something inside me hardened. The woman who had spent 20 years supporting Michael Sullivan was about to disappear. In her place, someone new was emerging, someone who wouldn't beg for explanations or cry for a second chance. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Sandra, it's Jennifer Sullivan. I need you to connect me with that private investigator you used during your divorce. I paused. And your shark of a lawyer, too. Because if there's one thing confident Texas women understand, it's that when a man shows you who he really is, you'd better be ready to fight back twice as hard. By evening, Michael still hadn't returned to our suite, and I'd already set wheels in motion that would change both our lives forever. Sandra's PI, a former Houston PD detective named Ray, was already pulling surveillance footage from the St. Regis. Her attorney had sent over preliminary divorce paperwork for me to review. Mrs. Sullivan, the hotel room phone rang at 7 p.m. There's a delivery for you at the front desk. I found a bouquet of 24 long-stemmed roses waiting, with a card in Michael's handwriting. Happy anniversary, babe. Sorry about the work emergency. Meet me for a late dinner at 9. All my love, M. Work emergency. Right. I took the flowers back to the room and placed them on the bathroom counter. Then I turned on the hot water in the tub, stripped the roses of their petals, and scattered them across the surface like I was preparing for a romantic evening. I poured myself a glass of the $1,000 bottle of Cabernet Michael had ordered for our anniversary and sank into the scalding water. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Got the footage. Your husband checked into St. Regis with blonde female, approximately 25-30 years old. They left together at 4 p.m. in his Porsche, sending still images to your secure email. I opened the attachment while still in the tub. There he was. My husband of 20 years, with his arm around a woman who couldn't be older than 26. Ashley wore a white sundress, despite the Colorado winter, and Michael was carrying a distinctive light blue bag. Tiffany's! Another text came through from Ray. Credit card shows dinner charge at private dining room at Matsuhisa at 5 p.m. 2 people, $450. Still there now, according to my contact. I took another sip of Cabernet. So while I waited alone in our anniversary suite, Michael was treating his assistant to $500 worth of sushi, with the necklace or bracelet or whatever $5,000 trinket he'd bought to keep her happy. I called down to the concierge. This is Jennifer Sullivan. My husband made arrangements for our anniversary dinner. Could you confirm the details for me? Of course, Mrs. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan has reserved the private Alpine dining room at Element 47 for 9 p.m. He's ordered the chef's tasting menu with wine pairings. The note says he'll meet you there. I smiled to myself. Michael always did like his elaborate cover stories. Dinner reservations at the hotel restaurant meant he could slip back in from wherever he really was, change clothes, and pretend he'd been handling business all day. At 8:30, I put on the black Valentino dress I'd bought specially for this trip. I styled my hair, applied my confident makeup flawlessly, and fastened my own anniversary gift around my neck, a diamond pendant I'd purchased myself last week, knowing from experience that Michael usually forgot our anniversary until the last minute. I arrived at Element 47 at exactly 9 p.m. The maitre d' showed me to the private dining room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the snow-covered mountains. "Mrs. Sullivan, would you like to order a drink while waiting for your husband?" "Martini, extra dry, 3 olives," I said, setting my phone on the table. "And please, bring the serious wine pairings for 1. I, confident, don't think Mr. Sullivan will be joining me tonight." The maitre d' hesitated. "Are you certain? He was quite specific about the arrangements." I, confident, smiled. "I'm absolutely certain. My husband is currently having dessert at Matsuhisa with his executive assistant. The dinner reservation here was just his cover story." The poor man's face showed his discomfort. "I'll bring your martini right away, ma'am." I enjoyed every bite of that $1,200 dinner alone, sending photos of each exquisite course to my best friend back in Houston with increasingly bitter captions. By the time I finished the chocolate souffle at 11 p.m., Michael had texted 4 times asking where I was. I ignored them all. Back in our suite, I packed Michael's things neatly into his luggage, placing his toiletries in their designated leather cases, folding his cashmere sweaters exactly as he liked. Then I set everything by the door and changed into my silk pajamas. At midnight, I turned off my phone and went to sleep in the king-sized bed, spreading out diagonally across his side and mine. Whatever crisis brought Michael back to our hotel room in the middle of the night, I slept through it entirely. I only know he returned because when I woke at 6 a.m., his suitcases were gone. And so was he. I spent the day alone in Aspen, treating myself to the spa appointment Michael had abandoned. As the massage therapist worked out the knots of tension in my shoulders, I scrolled through the additional information Ray had sent overnight. Ashley Davis, 26. Graduated from Southern Methodist University 3 years ago. Previously worked at 2 other energy companies in Houston before Michael hired her with a salary nearly double what her experience warranted. The PI had uncovered 4 weekend trips they'd taken together in the past 3 months, all disguised as business development on Michael's corporate credit card. I forwarded everything to Sandra's attorney. By evening, I was sitting in a quiet corner of the hotel bar, nursing a glass of Merlot, when my phone lit up with Michael's face. 12 hours of silence, and now he decided to call? I let it ring through to voicemail. 3 minutes later, he called again, then again. On the 4th call, I answered. "Jennifer, thank God. Where have you been?" Michael's voice sounded strange, strained, and slightly slurred. "Enjoying my anniversary, Michael. Alone." "Baby, I can explain everything. There was an emergency with the Saudi deal." "Stop. Just stop." My ice was ice. "I know about Ashley. I know about the St. Regis. I know about Tiffany's." Silence stretched between us. Then, "Jen, it's not what you think." "It never is it?" I took another sip of wine. "Where are you, Michael? With her?" His nervous breathing changed. No, I'm in Glenwood Springs." That made me sit up straighter. Glenwood Springs was nearly 40 miles from Aspen. "What are you doing in Glenwood Springs?" I need your help." His desperate voice cracked. "I'm at the Hampton Inn. My wallet's gone." "My phone is about to die. I need you to come get me." "Where's Ashley?" I asked coldly. Another long silence. She's gone." "Gone where, Michael?" "She took my Porsche and my wallet. Please, Jen, I know you're mad, but I need you to come pick me up. It's an emergency." I laughed, the sound echoing harshly in the quiet bar. "An emergency? Like our anniversary was yesterday? That kind of emergency?" "Jennifer, please, I'm begging you. Something happened, something bad.
I'll explain everything when you get here." I signaled the bartender for my check. "Which Hampton Inn?" "The one downtown, room 217. Please hurry." As I signed the bar tab, I asked the question that had been burning inside me since I saw the notification. Was I the first person you called, Michael? The pause told me everything. "No," he finally admitted. "I called John first, and my brother. They're both out of town." John was his business partner. Of course Michael had called him first. John knew about Ashley all along. And his brother lived in Miami, so he was hardly an option for a Colorado rescue mission. "I'll be there in an hour," I said, and hung up. I didn't immediately head to my car. Instead, I went back to our suite and opened my laptop. A quick search showed me there were 3 car rental agencies still open in Aspen. I made a call. "This is Jennifer Sullivan. My husband and I had a terrible fight, and I need to rent a car to drive home to Houston. Yes, I know it's over 1,000 miles. No, I don't need you to talk me out of it." 30 minutes later, I was driving a rented Cadillac Escalade toward Glenwood Springs, my overnight bag in the back and a cold determination settling in my chest. I'd left our suite key and a note for the hotel management explaining that neither of us would be returning, and they should charge any remaining balance to the credit card on file. The credit card Michael and I shared. The one I'd just removed myself from as an authorized user that afternoon. The snow was falling gently on the mountain roads as I drove toward whatever disgusted mess Michael had created for himself. But I wasn't driving there as his savior. I was driving there as his reckoning. The Hampton Inn in Glenwood Springs looked exactly like every other budget hotel in America. A sarcasm from the 5-star luxury Michael insisted on when we traveled together. I parked the Escalade in the nearly empty lot and checked my appearance in the rearview mirror. I'd reapplied my makeup and changed into jeans and a cashmere sweater. Casual, but confident, put together. The diamonds at my throat caught the harsh parking lot lights. Room 217 was on the second floor. I knocked twice, hearing shuffling behind the door before it swung open. Michael, disgusted, looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive button-down wrinkled and missing 2 buttons. A red mark that looked, surprisingly, like a slap bloomed across his left cheek. His eyes were bloodshot. "Thank God you're here," he said, reaching for me. I, angry, stepped past him into the room without accepting his embrace. The space smelled of cheap whiskey and desperation. An empty Jack Daniels bottle sat on the nightstand next to a plastic cup from the bathroom. "What happened to your $5,000 mistress?" I asked, remaining standing as Michael sank onto the edge of the unmade bed. "Jen, please, it's not like that." "Then what is it like, Michael? Explain it to me, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been fucking your 26-year-old assistant behind my back, buying her jewelry with our money, and booking hotel rooms to do it in." He flinched at my language. In 20 years, he'd rarely heard me curse. Well, the old Jennifer was gone. "It was a mistake," he said, his sad voice breaking. "A stupid, terrible mistake. Ashley, she's not who I thought she was." "And who did you think she was? Wife material?" Michael looked up, his face pale. "She blackmailed me, Jen." I laughed outright. "Seriously, that's your story? The young woman you were screwing decided to blackmail you? How original." "It's the truth." He stood up suddenly, swaying slightly. 3 months ago, after the company holiday party, something happened. Just once. I told her it was a mistake, that I loved my wife. But she had videos. She threatened to send them to you, to the board, to our investors. My disgusted stomach turned at the thought of Michael with her, but I kept my face impassive. So instead of coming clean to me, you decided to keep sleeping with her and buying her gifts? Make it make sense, Michael. He paced the small room. She said she'd ruin me, ruin us, the business, our reputation, everything. I thought I could handle it, keep her happy until she moved on. And yesterday, our anniversary, was that just keeping her happy too? Michael stopped pacing. She told me she was pregnant. The words shocked hit me like a physical blow. I, tired, sank into the room's only chair. Is she? I don't know. Michael ran his hands through his hair. She told me yesterday morning, said we needed to talk immediately. I panicked, met her at the St. Regis, and bought her a $5,000 Tiffany's gift to celebrate the blessed event. My voice dripped acid. I thought I could buy her off. One big payment to disappear. She seemed to agree. We had lunch, discussed terms. Then we came back here because she said she didn't want to be seen at the fancy hotels anymore. She wanted to show me she was serious about discretion. I looked around the dingy room. To this place? From the Stay Regis? I know how it sounds. Michael's tired, shoulders slumped. When we got here, she insisted on more champagne. I drank too much. When I woke up, she was gone. So was my wallet, my Porsche keys, my Rolex, everything. Disgusted. And now you need me to rescue you? I, disgusted, shook my head in disgust. Did she actually say she was leaving town? Or did you just sarcastic, that's what your money was buying? Michael looked confused. She said she'd go back to Dallas, to her parents, start fresh. I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app we shared. Your Porsche is still in Aspen, Michael, at the St. Regis Valet. His fearful face drained of color. That's impossible. She took my keys. And apparently walked right back to the luxury hotel you left your credit cards at. I stood up. Let me guess what happened. You offered Ashley money to disappear. She realized you were trying to pay her off cheaply. She got you drunk, robbed you of your valuables, abandoned you in a budget hotel, and went back to enjoy the 5-star suite you were already paying for. Michael sank back onto the bed, head in his hands. Please tell me you didn't give her access to any company accounts, I said. His silence was damning. Michael, what did you do? She's been handling some of the wire transfers for the Saudi deal. She has the authentication codes for the escrow account. I closed my eyes, fury washing over me in waves. How much is in that account? $3.4 million! My eyes flew open. You gave your blackmailing mistress access to $3 million? Are you insane? She doesn't have full access. She needs secondary approval from either me or John. I grabbed my phone again and dialed John's number. It went to voicemail. John, it's Jennifer. Michael's mistress may be attempting to access the Saudi escrow account. Lock it down immediately. Call me back. I hung up and glared at my husband. When did you last speak with John? This morning. He's in Tokyo until Wednesday. And when do the Saudis expect their money? Michael's face was ashen now. Monday. I checked the time. Nearly midnight on Saturday. We need to get back to Aspen now! Why Aspen? Because your girlfriend is still there, you idiot, with your car, your wallet, and potentially access to your company's millions. I grabbed my purse. And because I left all my things at the Little Nell, including the evidence I've been gathering on your affair. Michael stood shakily. You've been investigating me? I fixed him with a cold stare. for about 12 hours now, and I've already found enough to bury you in divorce court. For the first time, real fear flickered in my husband's eyes. Jen, please, we can work this out. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. And for the 20 years you just threw away on a disgusted con artist half your age. As we drove back toward Aspen through the dark mountain roads, Michael stared silently out the window. The man I'd built a life with, had children with, had trusted with everything, was now a stranger beside me. And somewhere ahead in the snowy night, a woman who'd outsmarted him was enjoying the rewards of her deception. The Stan Regis Aspen gleamed like a snow-covered fortress as we pulled into the circular drive shortly after 1 in the morning. The night manager recognized Michael immediately, the concerned expression on his face telling me something was wrong even before he spoke. "Mr. Sullivan, we've been trying to reach you. There's been an incident with your guest." Michael stumbled forward. "What incident? What did she do?" The manager's eyes flicked nervously to me, then back to Michael. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately, sir." "I'm his wife," I said coldly. "Whatever his guest has done, I need to hear it too." The manager led us to a small office off the main lobby, closing the door behind us. At approximately 10 p.m., the young woman staying in your mountain suite attempted to charge $22,000 worth of spa services, room service, and boutique purchases to your account. Michael's face reddened. "And you allowed this?" "No, sir. The charges were declined. Your credit card company flagged them as potentially fraudulent and contacted us. When our staff asked the guest for another form of payment, she became belligerent." "Belligerent how?" I asked. "She, disgusted, broke several items in the suite and threatened to post negative reviews claiming bed bugs and food poisoning unless we comped her entire stay." The manager straightened his tie nervously. "When security arrived, she claimed to be Mrs. Sullivan and said you had abducted her wallet and left her stranded." I couldn't help but laugh. Well, she's certainly creative. "Security escorted her from the property about an hour ago," the manager continued. "She left in a silver Porsche with Texas plates. I believe it was your vehicle, Mr. Sullivan." Michael sank into a chair. "Did she say where she was going?" "No, sir, but she was quite vocal about her intention to, make you pay, as she put it." I stepped forward. "I'm staying at the Little Nell. Has anyone been asking for me there?" The manager shook his head. "Not that I'm aware of, Mrs. Sullivan." "I need to go back to our hotel," I told Michael. "You deal with this mess." Michael grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "Jen, wait. We need to go to the police. File a report about the car, my wallet." "And tell them what, exactly?" I pulled my arm away. "That your mistress stole your things after you tried to pay her off? That'll make a great story in the Houston Chronicle." The manager cleared his throat. "If I may, sir, the police are already involved. The young woman's behavior constituted disorderly conduct at minimum. We had to file a report." "Did she give them her real name?" I asked. "She identified herself as Ashley Davis." The manager hesitated. "She also claimed to be carrying, surprised, Mr. Sullivan's child." Fearful, Michael made a strangled sound. "I need to get back to the Little Nell," I repeated. "Michael, you stay here and talk to the police when they arrive. Tell them whatever version of the truth makes you look least pathetic." As I turned to leave again, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your husband's a liar. Meet me at Peach's Corner Cafe in 20 minutes if you want the truth. Come alone or I send the videos to your kids. A." I stared at the screen, my nervous heart pounding. Ashley was still in Aspen, and now she was angry, dragging my children into this mess. I need to go, I said, my confident voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Jennifer, please. Michael reached for me again. Don't leave me here. I looked at the man I'd loved for half my life, now reduced to a panicked, disgusted mess. You left me sitting alone on our anniversary while you were with her, Michael. Consider this karma. The calm night air bit at my face as I walked back to the Escalade. Peach's Corner Cafe was a popular breakfast spot that stayed open late during ski season. It would be public enough to be safe, private enough for the conversation I needed to have. 20 minutes later, I pushed open the cafe door. The late-night crowd was sparse. A few ski instructors unwinding after evening runs, a couple of tourists nursing hot chocolates, and in the corner booth, a young blonde woman in an expensive-looking white coat, Michael's Rolex glinting on her slender wrist. Ashley Davis looked up as I approached, her perfect features arranged in a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her calculating eyes. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said, "I was hoping you'd come." I slid into the booth across from her. "You have 10 minutes to explain why I shouldn't call the police right now and report you for grand theft auto, blackmail, and threatening my children." Ashley sipped her coffee calmly. "Because unlike your husband, I actually have confidence of my claims. And trust me, you'd rather hear this from me than read about it in court documents." I signaled to the waitress, "Black coffee, please." Then I turned back to Ashley. "Start talking." Ashley set her cup down delicately. "Surprised? I'm not sleeping with your husband, Mr. Sullivan. I never have been." I raised an eyebrow. "Sarcastic? The hotel rooms and jewelry suggest otherwise." "Your husband hired me 6 months ago, not as his assistant." She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was an email from Michael's account. Contract terms for Surprised, Operation Firewall, $150,000 payable upon completion. "What's Operation Firewall?" I asked. My mouth suddenly dry. "That's what Michael called his plan to hide assets from you." Ashley's perfect, confident smile turned predatory. "He's been angry planning to divorce you for over a year, Mrs. Sullivan. I was hired to help him create a paper trail that would hold up in court." The waitress placed my coffee on the table. I wrapped my hands around the hot mug, needing something to anchor me. "You expect me to believe my husband paid you to pretend to be his mistress? Check the dates on his credit card statements against his business trips. Every charge for hotels, restaurants, jewelry, they all coincide with meetings with offshore bankers and shell company formations." Ashley pulled out a USB drive. "It's all here. Account numbers, transfer records, confident. Everything he thought I was helping him hide from you." "Why are you telling me this?" Suspicious. Ashley leaned forward. "Because your husband tried to double-cross me. That $150,000 he promised? He's been making excuses for months. Yesterday, he claimed the final payment would come from the Saudi deal on Monday. Then, I found evidence he was planning to frame me for embezzlement once the money cleared. My mind was spinning. The Saudi escrow account. Exactly. $3 million that's supposed to clear on Monday? Only about half of that is actually going to the Saudis. The rest was meant to disappear into Michael's hidden accounts." Ashley's aggressive eyes hardened. "With fearful my electronic fingerprints all over the transactions." "And you expect me to believe you're telling me this out of the goodness of your heart?" "Huh. I expect you to believe I'm telling you this because we've both been screwed over by the same man." She tapped the USB drive. "My real fee is $500,000. In exchange, you get everything you need to take him for every penny in the divorce, plus my testimony. I stared at her for a long moment. Serious, why should I trust you? You shouldn't, but you can verify everything I've given you, and you can decide whether Michael deserves to keep half of what you've built together after what he's done. I picked up the USB drive, turning it over in my fingers. Serious, what about the pregnancy? Ashley laughed. A fiction to force his hand. He was stalling on payment, so I needed leverage. Serious, and the blackmail videos? Also fiction. Your husband has quite an imagination when he's panicking. I slipped the USB drive into my purse. $500,000 is steep. Not compared to what you stand to lose if you go into your divorce blind. Ashley stood up, draping Michael's cashmere scarf around her neck. I'll be in touch tomorrow for your decision. Oh, and don't worry about the Porsche. It's parked at the Little Nell Valet under your name. She walked out into the snowy night, leaving me alone with a cold cup of coffee and a story that turned everything I thought I knew about my marriage upside down. If Ashley was telling the truth, Michael wasn't just a cheater. He was a thief, a liar on a scale I couldn't have imagined. And he'd been planning to leave me with nothing. Back in my suite at the Little Nell, I plugged Ashley's USB drive into my laptop with trembling hands. If she was telling the truth, I was about to uncover a betrayal far deeper than infidelity. If she was lying, well, I'd be $500,000 poorer, but at least I'd know. The drive contained a single folder labeled Suspicious Operation Firewall. Inside were dozens of files, meticulously organized by date, account number, and purpose. I opened the first document, a scanned letter from an attorney in the Cayman Islands confirming the establishment of a shocked shell company called Sullivan Ventures Limited, dated 14 months ago. My name was nowhere on the paperwork. The next file was a series of wire transfer confirmations. Over the past year, small amounts between $50,000 and $100,000 had been moved from our joint business account into the Cayman entity. Each transfer corresponded with a business trip Michael had taken. I opened a spreadsheet titled Asset Allocation. It contained a detailed inventory of our marital property with 2 columns, Michael and Jennifer. Under his column was roughly 80% of our net worth. My column contained our primary residence, 1 vacation property, and a disgusted maintenance allowance. My hands shook with rage as I continued scrolling through documents. There were emails between Michael and financial advisors discussing how to undervalue his company before divorce proceedings. Correspondence with a real estate agent about selling our Galveston beach house, which was solely in my name, without my knowledge. And, most damning of all, a document titled Narrative Development. It outlined a story of me as an unstable, possibly alcoholic wife whose emotional problems had driven Michael to seek comfort elsewhere. Complete with dates of arguments we'd had, times I'd had too much wine at dinner parties, and statements from witnesses who would testify to my supposed instablehood. The Saudi deal documents confirmed everything Ashley had claimed. Only 45% of the money was actually going to the Saudis. The rest was being routed through 3 different shell companies before landing in Michael's hidden accounts. I leaned back in my chair, utterly stunned. For over a year, while I'd been planning anniversary trips and supporting his career, my husband had been systematically preparing to destroy me. Not just to leave me broke and broken, with my reputation in tatters. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Where are you? Police took statement. Need to talk about Ashley. Coming to Nell." I quickly copied all the files from the USB drive to my secure cloud storage, then removed the drive and slipped it into my makeup bag. I needed time to think, to plan. If even half of what Ashley had provided was legitimate, I was in the fight of my life. A soft knock at the door made me jump. I checked the peephole to see Michael standing in the hallway, his face haggard. I opened the door but blocked his entry. "What do you want?" "Can I come in, please?" He looked over his shoulder nervously. "I don't want to do this in the hallway." Reluctantly, I stepped aside. Michael entered and immediately headed for the minibar, pulling out a small bottle of scotch. "Sarcastic," I said sarcastically. He downed the scotch in one gulp. "The police are looking for Ashley. She's wanted for credit card fraud and grand theft auto. They found my wallet in a trash can outside the St. Regis, but my cards were missing." "And your Porsche?" "Still gone." He poured another miniature bottle into his glass. "Jen, I know how bad this looks, but you have to believe me. Ashley set me up. There was never an affair." I stared at him, surprised, amazed by his audacity. "Really? That's your story now? Not that you were blackmailed, but that there was no affair at all?" "It's the truth." His eyes desperate pleaded with me. "She approached me at a business conference 3 months ago, claimed to be a marketing specialist. Her references checked out. She was smart, capable. I hired her to help with the Saudi deal. And the hotel rooms, the jewelry, the hours-long phone calls?" I kept my voice steady, wanting to see how deep his lies would go. "She needed a place to work when we traveled. The calls were about the deal. And the jewelry." He hesitated. "It was supposed to be for you, for our anniversary. Ashley offered to pick it up since she was heading to that part of town." I laughed out loud. "And she just happened to run off with it? How convenient." "I think she planned this from the beginning." Michael sat heavily on the edge of the bed. "The police think she might be running some kind of long con. They're checking to see if she's done this before." "A long con," I repeated. "You mean like systematically transferring assets to offshore accounts to hide them from your wife before divorcing her?" Michael's head snapped up, his face paling. "What?" I walked to my laptop and turned the screen toward him, displaying one of the transfer confirmations. "Operation Firewall." "Really, Michael? You couldn't come up with a less obvious name for your plan to steal from me?" He stared at the screen, then at me. "Where did you get that?" Confident, "Ashley gave it to me. All of it. The Cayman accounts, the Saudi deal fraud, the character assassination you were planning." My angry voice shook with rage. 20 years together, and you were going to, disgusted, leave me with crumbs while painting me as an unstable alcoholic? Michael stood abruptly. "She's manipulating you. Those documents are forgeries." "Are they? Should we call the bank in Grand Cayman together? Or maybe your attorney in Zurich?" I advanced on him, my voice rising. "Or how about we just wait until Monday to, confident, see if the Saudi money actually arrives where it's supposed to go?" "Jennifer, you're not thinking clearly." "For the first time in years, I'm seeing with perfect clarity." I opened the suite door. "Get out." "This is our room." "Not anymore. I've paid for it with my credit card through the weekend. You are no longer welcome here." Michael's angry expression darkened. "You're making a huge mistake. Whatever Ashley told you, she's the con artist, not me." "Maybe, but right now, her story has evidence backing it up. Yours just has scotch and desperation." I held the door wider. "The police are looking for you anyway. Maybe you should go find them instead of angry me." For a moment, I thought he might refuse to leave. Then his sad shoulders slumped in defeat. This isn't over, Jen. You're right about that. It's just beginning. I closed the door firmly behind him and slid the security chain into place. Alone again, I returned to my laptop and the damning evidence of Michael's betrayal. One file I hadn't opened yet caught my suspicious attention. Jennifer, financialleverage.doc. I clicked on it, my fearful blood running cold as I read. JMS has separate income from family trust, approximately $2.3 million per year, not subject to division in divorce as established pre-marriage. Strategy: convince JMS to invest trust disbursements in joint ventures over next 6 months, then move funds offshore before filing. Potential yield: 1 to 1.5 million additional hidden assets. I closed the laptop, a strange calm settling over me.
Michael hadn't just been planning to take what we'd built together, he'd been actively plotting to steal my separate property as well. I picked up my phone and dialed Ray, the PI. I need everything you can find on a Saudi deal that Sullivan Energy is closing on Monday, and I need you to verify some offshore accounts for me. Next, I called Sandra's attorney. This is Jennifer Sullivan. I know it's late, but I need an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. I'm filing for divorce, and we have a very small window to prevent my husband from hiding millions. Finally, I called my brother, a senior vice president at First National Bank of Texas. David, it's Jennifer. I need you to help me protect my assets right now. By sunrise, Operation Firewall would have a new architect. And Michael Sullivan would discover just how dangerous it is to underestimate a Texas woman scorned. Sunday morning, bright and clear over the Aspen Mountains. While tourists hit the slopes for early runs, I sat in a serious private conference room at the Little Nell with Sandra's attorney, Elaine Warfield, and Ray Donner, the private investigator. Both had flown in on the first morning flights from Houston after my midnight calls. These offshore transfers alone constitute financial fraud, Elaine said, reviewing the documents from Ashley's USB drive. The fact that he's been planning this for over a year shows clear intent. A judge will crucify him. Ray spread photographs across the table, surveillance shots of Michael entering banks in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Singapore over the past year. These match the dates on the transfer documents.
He's been very busy, Mrs. Sullivan. I sipped my coffee, remarkably calm despite the evidence of my husband's treachery mounting before me. What about the Saudi deal? Can we stop the transfer tomorrow? I've got a contact at the SEC who owes me a favor, Elaine said. With evidence of intended fraud this substantial, they could freeze the accounts pending investigation, but we'd need to desperately move quickly. And what about Ashley Davis? I asked Ray. Have you verified her story? Partially. Ray pulled out a file. She's surprised not who she claims to be. Her real name is Alexandra Delaney. She has degrees from Wharton and MIT, not SMU, and she's worked for at least 3 other energy executives in the past 5 years, all of whom went through suspicious, messy divorces shortly after her departure. So she is running a con, I said thoughtfully. A very sophisticated one. Ray showed me a document. She approaches executives she believes are planning to hide assets and divorce, offers to help them do it, documents everything, then sells the information to the wives. According to my sources, she's made, surprised, millions this way. And never been caught? She's careful to operate in legal gray areas. She doesn't steal the money herself, she just reveals where it's hidden. And she always disappears before things get ugly. Ray closed his file. The Porsche showed up at Denver International Airport's long-term parking this morning. She's likely already out of the country. I nodded, processing this information. So she gave me legitimate evidence, but her asking price was inflated. Substantially. Elaine agreed. What she provided is worth maybe $50,000 in investigative costs, not $500,000. Then we don't pay her, I decided. We've got what we need. Now we move against Michael before he realizes what's happening. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Meeting with police again this morning. We need to talk afterward. Please. I showed the message to Elaine, who shook her head. Don't respond. We don't want him to know what we're doing until the temporary restraining orders are in place. For the next 3 hours, we built our legal strategy. My brother David joined by conference call, confirming he'd secured my trust assets and revoked any powers of attorney Michael might have had. By noon, Elaine had drafted emergency motions to freeze all our marital assets pending divorce proceedings, with the evidence of Michael's fraud as justification. We need to file in Harris County first thing tomorrow morning, Elaine explained. That means flying back to Houston today. I nodded. Confident, I've already booked us on the 3 p.m. flight. What about Michael? Ray asked. If he catches wind of this, he might try to accelerate his plans. I'll keep him distracted, I said, a plan forming in my mind. He thinks I'm still in the dark about the extent of his scheme. Let's keep it that way until tomorrow. After Elaine and Ray left to prepare for our flight, confident, I finally responded to Michael's text. Meet me for lunch at 1, Element 47. We need to talk. His reply came instantly. On my way. I took extra care with my appearance, choosing a St. John knit dress that Michael had always loved, styling my hair in soft waves, applying makeup that enhanced without appearing obvious. For this performance, I needed to look like a woman teetering between anger and reconciliation, not one planning financial warfare. Michael was already waiting when I arrived at the restaurant, freshly shaven and wearing a new shirt that still had visible fold lines. His hopeful eyes lit up with hope when he saw me, rising quickly to pull out my chair. Thank you for meeting me, he said, his gentle voice gentle. I wasn't sure you would. I gave him a calm smile. Serious, I'm not ready to forgive you, Michael, but we need to discuss what happens next. Relief washed over his features. Absolutely, I know I have a lot to make up for. The police contacted me this morning, I said, watching his reaction carefully. They wanted to verify some details about Ashley. Or should I say, Alexandra? Michael's eyebrows rose. Alexandra? Apparently, our Miss Davis has quite a history of inserting herself into the lives of wealthy men. I unfolded my napkin, placing it in my lap. The detective I spoke with believes she targeted you specifically. Michael, hopeful, leaned forward eagerly. That's what I've been trying to tell you. She set me up, Jen. All of it. The hotel rooms, the jewelry charges, everything. It was part of her plan. I took a sip of water. And the offshore accounts? Serious? Was that part of her plan too? Michael's fearful expression froze. What offshore accounts? The ones in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Singapore. I kept my voice conversational. The detective mentioned unusual banking activity they've discovered while investigating her other victims. Michael relaxed slightly. She must have been planning to divert company funds there. Thank God they caught it in time. I nodded sympathetically. That's what I thought too, especially with the Saudi deal closing tomorrow. I reached across the table to touch his hand. Michael, I need to know if our company is at risk. Those investors are counting on that money. The relief in Michael's eyes was palpable. He thought I was buying his story. Everything's secure now. I spoke with John this morning. He's flying back early from Tokyo to help handle the closing. Good, I said. I'd hate for your reputation to be damaged by that woman's schemes. Michael squeezed my hand. Jen, I know I've been a terrible husband lately, The stress of this deal, the hours I've been working. It's no excuse for neglecting you, especially on our anniversary. I gave him a sarcastic, sad smile. 20 years is a long time, Michael. It's not something I'm willing to throw away over sarcastic one mistake. Hope bloomed on his face. Does that mean? It means I need time, I said carefully. I'm going back to Houston this afternoon. I need to check on the house, get some space to think. I'll come with you, he said quickly. I shook my head. No, you need to stay here and make sure the Saudi deal closes properly. That's your priority right now. You're my priority, he insisted. Prove it by fixing this mess. I withdrew my hand. Make sure our company is secure. Then we can discuss our marriage. Michael nodded eagerly. Anything you need, just tell me there's a chance for us. I forced moisture into my eyes, letting my voice catch slightly. 20 years, Michael. 364 days of memories. I can't just forget all that because of one terrible day. He reached for my hand again. I love you, Jen. I always have. I know, I lied, standing up. I need to pack. My flight leaves at 3. Let me help you. No. I softened my refusal with a small smile. I need to do this myself. Call me tomorrow after the deal closes. I walked out of the restaurant with Michael's gaze on my back, straightening my shoulders and lifting my chin. The Academy would have given me an Oscar for that performance. In my suite, Ray was waiting with my packed bags. How did it go? He believes I'm considering forgiveness and that I know nothing about his real plans. I checked my watch. We have 45 minutes to get to the airport. Did Elaine secure the court appointment for tomorrow? 9 a.m. with Judge Rodriguez. She's known for her harsh stance on financial fraud in divorce cases. Ray picked up my suitcase. Your brother has the trust documents ready, and John's wife has agreed to provide a surprised statement about Michael's behavior. I raised an eyebrow. John's wife? Apparently, Michael bragged to John about his plans. John made the mistake of telling his wife, who was appalled. Ray shrugged. Confident, marital solidarity trumps business partnerships. As we drove to the airport, I gazed out at the snowy mountains for the last time. The romantic anniversary trip I'd planned had transformed into something entirely different. The opening moves in a high-stakes divorce that would shock Houston society. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Have a safe flight, babe. I'll fix everything, promise. I showed it to Ray, who, sarcastic, chuckled darkly. If only he knew what's coming. He made one critical mistake, I said, slipping my phone back into my purse. He thought he was the smartest person in the room. By this time tomorrow, Michael Sullivan would learn just how wrong he had been. Monday morning dawned hot and humid in Houston, a stark contrast to the crisp mountain air I'd left behind. By 8 a.m., I was seated in Elaine Warfield's downtown office. Dressed in a conservative navy Chanel suit that projected exactly the image we wanted to present to the judge. Successful businesswoman, betrayed wife, confident, righteous plaintiff. The SEC has agreed to monitor the Saudi transaction in real time, Elaine informed me, setting a stack of documents on the conference table. If the money deviates from its contractually obligated path, they'll freeze all accounts immediately. And confident Michael has no idea what's coming? I confirmed. None. I spoke with John an hour ago. Michael was in their Aspen satellite office at 6 a.m., preparing for the 9 a.m. wire transfer. He's been telling everyone you two had a minor disagreement but have reconciled. I, confident, smiled thinly. Perfect. At 8:45, we left for the courthouse, where Judge Maria Rodriguez would hear our emergency petition. By 9:30,
She had reviewed the evidence of Michael's financial fraud and signed the temporary restraining orders freezing all marital assets, suspending Michael's access to our joint accounts, and prohibiting him from entering any of our properties. "Mrs. Sullivan," Judge Rodriguez said, peering at me over her reading glasses, "these are serious allegations against your husband. Are you prepared for the consequences of filing them?" "I am, Your Honor," I replied steadily. "I've been married to Michael Sullivan for 20 years. I helped him build his company from nothing. I raised our children while he built his career. I deserve better than to have him steal what we created together." The serious judge nodded solemnly. "I've seen too many cases where one spouse tries to hide assets from another, but rarely with this level of documentation or premeditation. You've made your case for emergency intervention. The confident restraining orders are granted." As we left the courtroom, Elaine's phone buzzed with a text. She read it and, confident, smiled grimly. The SEC just flagged the Saudi transfer. 55% of the money was diverted to accounts that don't match the contract terms. Exactly as Ashley's documents predicted, I noted. They've frozen everything and opened a formal investigation. Sullivan Energy is officially under federal scrutiny. We returned to Elaine's office to prepare for the inevitable fallout. I didn't have to wait long. At 10:17, my phone exploded with calls and texts from Michael. 10:17 a.m. "What the hell is happening? The transfer failed." 10:18 a.m. "The SEC is asking questions about offshore accounts. Did you say something?" 10:20 a.m. "Jennifer, answer your damn phone!" 10:25 a.m. "Our accounts are frozen, all of them. What did you do?" At 10:30, Elaine's receptionist buzzed. "Mrs. Sullivan, Mr. John Parker is here to see you. He says it's urgent." John, Michael's business partner of 15 years, looked shaken when he was shown into the conference room. A tall, distinguished man in his early 50s, he'd been a dinner guest in our home countless times, a fixture at company events, even a godfather to one of our children. "Jennifer," he said, his voice hoarse, "tell me you're not behind this." I gestured for him to sit. "Hello, John. This is my attorney, Elaine Warfield." John ignored the introduction. "The SEC has frozen all company accounts. The Saudi investors are threatening to pull out completely. We could lose everything." "Not we, John. You and Michael." I kept my voice calm. "I'm protecting my interests." "By destroying the company? Jennifer, be reasonable." Was Michael being reasonable when he planned to steal my share of our marital assets? I pushed copies of the offshore account documents across the table. Or when he angered investor funds to hidden accounts. John stared at the papers, his face paling. "I told him not to do this. I warned him it would backfire." "So you knew?" It wasn't a question. John slumped in his chair. "Not at first. When he started Operation Firewall, he told me it was tax planning. By the time I realized what he was really doing, we were too deep into the Saudi deal to back out." He looked up, his desperate eyes pleading. "Jennifer, the company employs 300 people. If this deal falls apart, they all lose their jobs." "I'm aware," I said. "That's why I've prepared an alternative proposal." I nodded to Elaine, who slid another document across the table. John read it, his eyebrows rising. "You want control of the company?" 51% ownership, effective immediately. Michael retains 15% as a silent partner. You keep your current 30%, plus operational control as CEO. I leaned forward. In exchange, I help clean up this mess with the SEC and the Saudis. How could you possibly fix this? The investors trust me. I've been hosting them in our home for months, building relationships while Michael focused on numbers. I smiled thinly.
And, unlike my husband, I'm not trying to steal from them. John studied me with new respect. Even if I agreed, Michael would never accept these terms. Michael's alternatives are federal prosecution for wire fraud and investment fraud. Elaine spoke for the first time. Mrs. Sullivan is offering him a chance to avoid prison. I need an answer by noon, John, I said, standing to indicate the meeting was over. After that, I'm going directly to the SEC with everything I know. As John left, visibly shaken, Ray entered through a side door. Michael just landed at Hobby Airport. His plane touched down 10 minutes ago. Right on schedule, I noted. Is everything ready at the house? Security team is in place. The locks have been changed. The restraining order has been delivered to HPD. Ray handed me a small device. Sirius, panic button. Just in case, Sirius. Press it and the security team comes running. My phone buzzed again with Michael's desperate, increasingly frantic messages. 11:05 a.m. Just landed in Houston. We need to talk now. 11:06 a.m. This is some kind of mistake. I can fix it. 11:10. Where are you? I'm coming home. I finally replied, I'm at the house. Security has instructions not to let you in. A restraining order has been filed. Contact my attorney, Elaine Warfield. His response was immediate. Restraining order? Jennifer, have you lost your mind? I turned off my phone and looked at Elaine. How long until he figures out exactly how much trouble he's in? The moment he tries to access any account and finds himself locked out. Or when his attorney explains the legal documents being delivered to his office right now. Elaine checked her watch. I'd say within the hour. At 11:45, John called back. I've spoken with our attorneys. Your terms are acceptable with minor modifications. No modifications, I said firmly. This isn't a negotiation, John. It's a confident rescue operation. A heavy sigh came through the phone. Then we accept. The board will ratify the changes this afternoon. And Michael? He's coming to terms with the situation. John's careful phrasing told me everything I needed to know about Michael's reaction. He's asked for a face-to-face meeting with you. That won't be possible while the restraining order is in effect. I kept my voice professional, as if discussing a minor scheduling conflict rather than the implosion of my marriage. His attorney can speak with mine. Jennifer, John's melancholic voice softened. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. What he tried to do was wrong. I should have stopped him. Yes, you should have. I ended the call and looked at Elaine. We have a deal. 3 hours later, I walked through the front door of my River Oaks mansion, the home Michael and I had built together 12 years ago, now guarded by private security who would ensure he couldn't enter. I kicked off my heels in the marble foyer and padded into the kitchen, where I, calm, poured myself a generous glass of Cabernet. My phone, which I'd finally turned back on, chimed with a text from an international number. Congratulations on outplaying both men. My offer to testify still stands if you need it. No charge. This one's on principle. A.D. Ashley, or Alexandra, had been monitoring the situation. I wasn't surprised. Women like her thrived on watching powerful men fall. I didn't respond to her message. I didn't need her testimony anymore. Michael had created enough evidence of his own fraud to bury himself 10 times over. As I sipped my wine and gazed out at the meticulously landscaped backyard, I felt no satisfaction, no vindication, only a profound weariness. 20 years of marriage had ended not with a tearful conversation or even a heated argument, but with court filings and corporate restructuring. My phone rang again. This time, it was my daughter calling from California. Mom, Dad's been calling us nonstop. He says there's been some kind of misunderstanding with the company. What's going on? I took a deep breath. The hardest conversations were still ahead of me. Sweetheart, we need to talk. About your father, about our marriage. And about what happens next. As the Texas sunset painted my kitchen walls gold, I began the painful process of explaining to my children how their father had betrayed not just me, but the values we'd raised them to believe in. By morning, the Houston social circles would be buzzing with the scandal. By the end of the week, Michael Sullivan would be fighting for his professional reputation and possibly his freedom. And I would be rebuilding my life, wiser, stronger, and in control of both my future and my fortune. 2 weeks after returning from Aspen, I sat in the executive conference room of Sullivan Energy, now officially renamed Sullivan Parker Energy, reviewing quarterly projections with John and the board of directors. As majority shareholder, I'd taken an active role in company governance, though I left day-to-day operations to John and the executive team. The Saudi investors have agreed to proceed with a restructured deal, John reported. They're confident with our transparency regarding the previous irregularities. Fraud, I corrected gently. Let's call it what it was. Michael attempted to defraud them and us. The board members nervously shifted uncomfortably. Most had been Michael's friends and golf buddies, men who'd initially viewed my takeover with skepticism. Now, faced with the evidence of his financial misconduct and the skillful way I'd salvaged the company's reputation, their attitudes had shifted to grudging respect. The SEC investigation is ongoing, our chief legal counsel added, but with our full cooperation and the evidence we've provided, they've indicated that charges will focus solely on Michael, not on the company itself. I nodded. Good. 300 families depend on this company for their livelihoods. I won't let Michael's actions hurt them. As the meeting concluded, my assistant approached with a note. Mrs. Sullivan, your attorney called. Michael's legal team has requested a settlement conference. After 2 weeks of furious legal maneuvers, threats, and attempts to access frozen assets, Michael had finally realized his position was untenable. The evidence against him was overwhelming, the financial stranglehold complete. Now he wanted to negotiate. Tell Elaine I'll be there, I said, gathering my papers, and reschedule my dinner with the children for tomorrow night. The settlement conference was set for 4 p.m. at Elaine's office. For the first time since Aspen, I would face Michael in person. I chose my outfit carefully, a crimson Armani suit that projected confidence and power, paired with the diamond necklace I'd bought myself for our anniversary. No wedding ring adorned my finger. I'd placed it in a safe deposit box the day after filing for divorce. Michael and his attorney, Barrett Wilson, were already seated in the conference room when I arrived with Elaine. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, looked diminished somehow. The confident swagger had evaporated, replaced by dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump to his shoulders. He'd lost weight, his custom suit hanging loosely on his frame. "Jennifer," he said, rising as I entered. I nodded coolly. "Michael." Barrett cleared his throat. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Mrs. Sullivan. We believe a negotiated settlement is in everyone's best interest." "That depends entirely on the terms," Elaine replied, opening her briefcase. "My client's position remains unchanged." Confident. Michael leaned forward. "Jen, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. You've humiliated me, taken control of my company, frozen my assets. What more do you want?" I met his gaze steadily. "Justice, Michael. Nothing more, nothing less." Barrett slid a document across the table. "Our proposed settlement terms. Mr. Sullivan is prepared to be generous despite the unusual circumstances." Elaine reviewed the document, her angry expression hardening. This is unacceptable. Your client is offering 30% of the marital assets when he attempted to steal 100%, and he wants his company position restored. It's my company, Michael snapped. I built it from nothing. We built it, I corrected. While you were in the office, I was raising our children, managing our household, hosting your clients, supporting your career in 1,000 invisible ways. I leaned forward. And I wasn't the one who jeopardized it all by committing angry federal fraud. Michael's angry face flushed with anger. You had that woman spy on me. She planted evidence. Ashley Davis? I laughed softly. She didn't plant anything, Michael. She just documented what you were already doing. Every transfer, every shell company, every secret account, those were your decisions. The SEC will never prove intent, Barrett interjected. Without Ashley's testimony, much of this evidence is circumstantial. Ashley has agreed to testify, I bluffed, watching Michael's face pale. And we have John's sworn statement about your Operation Firewall plans. Michael slammed his hand on the table. John betrayed me too? After everything I did for him? What you did was implicate him in financial fraud, Elaine, calm, said coolly. He's cooperating to save himself. Perhaps we should discuss this privately before proceeding. There's nothing to discuss, I said. My terms are simple. Michael relinquishes all claims to Sullivan Parker Energy. He keeps his 15% non-voting interest. He surrenders 70% of our remaining marital assets to compensate for his attempted fraud. And he signs a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement regarding our marriage and divorce. That's highway robbery, Michael sputtered. No, Michael. Highway robbery was what you planned to do to me. I stood up. Those are my terms. The alternative is that I testify fully to the SEC and the district attorney about your fraud schemes. I believe the aggressive sentencing guidelines for wire fraud and investment fraud are quite severe. Barrett whispered urgently to Michael, who shook his head in disbelief. You'd really do that? Michael asked. After 20 years, you'd send me to prison? After 20 years, you were going to leave me penniless and destroy my reputation. I gathered my purse. You made your choices, Michael. Now live with the consequences. As I turned to leave, Michael called after me. I loved you, Jennifer. Despite everything, I loved you. I paused at the door, turning to face him one last time. No, Michael, you loved what I provided. Stability, social standing, a perfect corporate wife. If you'd loved me, you never would have betrayed me in the first place. The settlement agreement arrived at Elaine's office the next morning, signed by Michael and notarized. He had accepted all my terms. 2 days later, the SEC announced that, confident, Michael Sullivan had agreed to cooperate with their investigation into financial improprieties at Sullivan Energy. As part of his cooperation, he resigned from all corporate positions and agreed to pay substantial fines. The scandal rocked Houston's business community. Former friends awkwardly avoided me at charity galas. Country club memberships suddenly had openings that hadn't existed before. Our children, initially devastated by the divorce, became angry with their father when they learned the full extent of his deception. Michael moved to a condo in Dallas, effectively exiled from the social circles he'd once dominated. Last I heard, he was dating a 20-something yoga instructor and claiming he'd been set up by his vengeful ex-wife. I remained in our River Oaks mansion, took my rightful place on the company board, and gradually rebuilt my life on my terms. The whispers eventually subsided, replaced by a new narrative: Jennifer Sullivan, the steel magnolia who refused to be victimized. 6 months after that fateful anniversary trip, I received a small package at my office. Inside was a Tiffany blue box containing a diamond bracelet and a note. A belated anniversary gift from a secret admirer. You earned it. AD. I donated the bracelet to a domestic violence charity auction where it sold for $12,000. Some anniversaries aren't worth celebrating, but some lessons are worth every painful moment it took to learn them. 1 year to the day after Michael's disappearance in Aspen, I stood on the terrace of my happy penthouse overlooking Buffalo Bayou Park. The River Oaks mansion, with its painful memories, had been sold months ago. The proceeds established college funds for my future grandchildren and endowed a hopeful scholarship for women returning to business school after raising families. "Mom, the caterers need to know where to set up the bar," my daughter called from inside. At 20, Emma had her father's business acumen, but thankfully, my moral compass. She'd transferred from UCLA to Rice University after the divorce, wanting to be closer to home during the transition. "Tell them the north corner," I replied, turning from the sunset view. "Better light for photos." Tonight was the official launch party for the Sullivan Foundation for Women in Business. My latest project, and perhaps the one that gave me the happy satisfaction. Using a portion of my divorce settlement, I'd established a nonprofit that provided mentoring, seed capital, and support for women entrepreneurs, particularly those rebuilding their lives after divorce or personal setbacks. The irony wasn't lost on me. Michael's attempt to destroy me had instead funded an organization that would help hundreds of women achieve financial independence. The elevator chimed, announcing the first guests. I smoothed the skirt of my confident emerald cocktail dress, a color I'd never worn during my marriage because, confident, Michael thought it too bold, and prepared to greet Houston's business and philanthropic elite, many of whom had snubbed me in the early days of the scandal. "Jennifer, darling, the place is spectacular," Sandra, my loyal friend through the darkest days, air-kissed my cheeks. "And so are you. Divorce definitely agrees with you." I laughed. "Not divorce, independence." As the penthouse filled with guests, I moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and discussing the foundation's mission. John Parker arrived with his wife, both offering warm hugs. "The latest quarterly reports," John whispered, slipping a thumb drive into my hand. "Best numbers we've seen in 5 years." "Sarcastic," I said dryly. John chuckled. "He doesn't know yet. As a non-voting shareholder, he gets the public reports, not the internal projections." I tucked the drive into my clutch. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, for a change. At 8 o'clock, I clinked a spoon against my champagne flute for attention. The crowd quieted as I stepped onto the small platform where a podium had been set up. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began. 1 year ago, my life changed dramatically. Not because my husband, Sarcastic, disappeared during our anniversary trip, though he did. Knowing laughter rippled through the room. The story had become legendary in Houston social circles. My life changed because I discovered my own strength. I surveyed the faces watching me, friends, colleagues, family, even a few former detractors who'd come around as the full story of Michael's fraud emerged. The Sullivan Foundation exists because too many women remain financially vulnerable within their marriages. Too many stay in unhealthy relationships because they lack the resources to leave. Too many surrender their dreams because someone else holds the purse strings. I raised my glass. Tonight, we hopeful, changing that reality, one woman entrepreneur at a time. Applause filled the room as servers circulated with fresh champagne. As the formal presentation concluded, I stepped away for a moment of solitude on the terrace, gazing at the Houston skyline glittering against the night sky. "Quite a comeback story," a familiar voice said behind me. I turned to see Ray Donner, the PI who'd helped expose Michael's scheme. Now a trusted friend and the foundation's security consultant, Ray handed me a glass of champagne. Not a comeback, I corrected. Confident, a new beginning. Still, Ray said, most women would have settled for half the marital assets and a quiet divorce. You took control of a multi-million-dollar company and started a foundation that's making national news. I smiled. Most women haven't had the privilege of seeing exactly what they're capable of when pushed to the brink. My phone chimed with a text from Emma. Dad's calling again. Third time this week, still asking about your foundation launch. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding. Michael's attempts at reconciliation had begun about 3 months after the divorce was finalized. First apologetic emails, then phone calls to the children asking about me. Finally, direct messages, sarcastic, professing regret and suggesting we talk about the future. I had nothing to say to him. The man I'd loved for 20 years had been a fiction. Or perhaps he'd simply become someone else along the way, someone capable of calculated betrayal on a grand scale. Either way, that chapter of my life was firmly closed. Any regrets? Ray asked, noting my momentary distraction. I considered the question seriously. I regret that my children had to learn such harsh truths about their father. I regret the years I spent blind to what was happening in my own marriage. I sipped my champagne. But I don't regret any action I took once I knew the truth. Inside, the party continued, a celebration not just of the foundation's launch, but of my reclaimed life. My son had flown in from California to surprise me. My closest friends had rallied around me during the darkest days and now shared in my triumph. The business I'd helped build was thriving under new leadership. And I was standing on my own terrace in my own home, funded by my own money, which no one could ever take from me again. Time to cut the cake, Mom, Emma called from the doorway. Be right there, I replied, taking a final moment alone with the night sky. 1 year ago, a desperate Michael had called me from a budget hotel room, begging for rescue. He hadn't been the first person he called for help, but I had been the confident last person he should have underestimated. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the woman I'd become, not despite my anniversary disaster, but because of it. Then I turned and walked back into the light, where my hopeful new life was waiting.